Have you ever found yourself constantly checking an app for an important update? Just pulling down to refresh over and over again? Well, believe it or not, a huge chunk of the internet used to work just like that. But today, we're diving into a much, much smarter way of doing things. We're talking about webhooks, the don't call us, we'll call you of the web. So, here's the roadmap for our little journey. First, we're going to look at the really annoying problem that webhooks were built to solve. Then, we'll unpack what they are, see one in action with a real-world example, and of course, cover the important stuff like security. We'll wrap things up by looking at the good and the bad so you'll know exactly when webhooks are the perfect tool for the job. Sound good? Let's dive in. All right, first things first, the problem. Think about being a kid on a long car ride, constantly asking from the backseat, "Are we there yet? Are we there yet?" It's exhausting, it's inefficient, and frankly, it's just annoying. Well, for applications, that's exactly what the old method called polling feels like. And this slide just lays it all out perfectly. Over on the left, you've got polling. It's basically one application constantly nagging a server asking, "Got anything new? How about now? Is it here yet?" It's just chaotic. But then look at the right. That is the elegance of a webhook. The server just says, "Hey, I got ya. I'll let you know." And then it sends one single direct message the exact moment something actually happens. So much cleaner, right? So that beautiful, efficient solution we just saw, how does it actually work? Well, it all comes down to one really powerful yet simple idea: the callback. And to really get webhooks, we have to start right there. A callback is pretty much exactly what it sounds like. Imagine you call a friend who's super busy. Instead of you having to call them back every 5 minutes to check if they're free, they just say, "Look, I'm swamped, but I promise I'll call you back the second I'm done." That's a callback. In the tech world, it's just a specific web address, an HTTP endpoint, that's basically acting as a designated phone number, just waiting to get that return call when the other service has news. And this is exactly how it gets set up. The destination service, that's the one waiting for the news, gives its phone number, its callback URL, to the source service. Now, the source can just sit back, listen for important events, and the moment one happens, boom, it knows exactly where to send the update. It's a simple, direct line of communication. And that, right there, is a webhook. It's this whole callback system in action. People sometimes call it a reverse API, which is a great way to think about it. Because instead of you constantly asking an API for information, the API calls you. It actively pushes the information out the second an event takes place. Okay, enough with the theory. Theory is great, but let's see how this actually plays out in the real world. We're going to follow the journey of a simple order from an online bookstore to make this super clear. So meet the two players in our little story. We've got books.example.com, that's the online shop where we're buying our books, and then we have warehouse.example.com, the partner who handles all the packing and shipping behind the scenes. Now, the very first thing they do, long before any of us places an order, is they basically exchange phone numbers. This initial setup is called the registration flow, and it's all about establishing those lines of communication. The bookstore tells the warehouse, "Hey, if you have any status updates for me, send them here." And the warehouse tells the bookstore, "Got it. When you have a new order, send it to this address." Okay, now for the action. A customer clicks buy. The bookstore system immediately logs an order.created event. And instantly, it fires off a webhook to the warehouse's special callback URL. The message is simple: "We've got a new order. Here are all the details. Time to get to work. No delay, no polling." But the conversation doesn't end there. This is a two-way street. As the warehouse team packs the book, puts it on a truck, and as it makes its way to the customer's door, it sends its own webhooks back to the bookstore. You get these little updates for order.dispatched, order.in-transit, and finally order.delivered. This keeps the bookstore's website updated in real time, which in turn keeps the customer happy. So if we boil that whole dance down, it's really just a simple 5-step process. 1, the destination sets up a callback URL. 2, the source registers that URL. 3, some event happens and the source triggers the webhook. 4, the destination gets the message, verifies it, and processes it. And finally, 5, it sends back a quick, "Got it, thanks." This little acknowledgement is actually pretty important for reliability. All right, this all sounds great, but you might be thinking, isn't it a bit risky to just open up a phone line on the internet? And you'd be right. So let's talk about how to do this the right way. How to make webhooks professional and totally trustworthy. If you look closely at our bookstore diagram, you might have spotted this little guy, the webhook secret. The best way to think of this is like a secret handshake. It's a secret key that only the bookstore and the warehouse know. The sender uses it to sign the message, and the receiver uses that same secret to check the signature. This proves the message is authentic and that it hasn't been messed with. This security process has a technical name, HMAC, but you don't need to know all the complex math behind it. All you need to know is that this process guarantees two absolutely crucial things. First, that the message really truly came from the service you think it did. And second, that the contents of that message, the order details, the price, the address, haven't been secretly altered along the way. Now, security is one thing, but what happens if the two services start speaking different languages? That's where good documentation comes in, and it is just as vital. Using a standard like the Open API specification, which you see an example of here, acts like a universal blueprint. It tells both sides exactly what the messages will look like, what data to expect, and how to respond. This prevents a ton of headaches and integration errors down the road. Now, webhooks are incredibly powerful, for sure, but they're not a silver bullet. Like any piece of technology, they've got their own set of trade-offs. So let's take a fair and balanced look at the pros and the cons. On the plus side, the advantages are huge. No more polling means they're super efficient and instant. They're event-driven, which is perfect for real-time updates. But on the flip side, the disadvantages are real too. If you change the format of a webhook message, you can easily break the other service. They don't automatically guarantee delivery. If the receiving server is down, that message could be lost. So you have to build in some extra logic for that. And there isn't one single universal standard for how all webhooks have to work. Okay, so with all of that in our back pocket, let's get practical. When are webhooks really the best tool for the job? When should you reach for them? Well, they're an absolute game changer for process automation. A developer pushes new code, and a webhook instantly kicks off the entire build and deployment pipeline. They're perfect for notifications, like a monitoring service pinging you the second a server goes down. We've already seen how essential they are for e-commerce. And they are fantastic for any long-running task, like a service telling you, hey, that huge video file you uploaded 2 hours ago, it's finally done converting. It's pretty cool to look back at where this idea even came from. The guy who coined the term, Jeff Lindsay, had this really elegant vision for the web way back in 2007. He imagined websites not as isolated destinations, but as flexible data sources, like little building blocks that could be connected and remixed, where the output of one becomes the input for the next, and webhooks, they were the pipes that would make it all possible. And that really leaves us with a big final question to think about. In a world that is demanding everything to be more instant, more connected, more real-time, from your food delivery status to alerts from your bank, is this event-driven, will-call-you model the blueprint for how everything on the web is going to communicate in the future? It really makes you wonder.